Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Building a Hybrid Cloud with Tintri. Before we get started, I'd like to run through a couple things and introduce today's speakers. I'd also like to let you know that we'll be recording today's webinar, so it will be made available to everyone afterward. If at any time you're having trouble hearing us, please let us know using the chat feature on your WebEx dashboard. We have two speakers joining us today. Nick Colyer is the Practice Manager of Cloud Management and Automation at AHEAD, and in his role, Nick specializes in virtualization, orchestration, and cloud technologies. Today, Nick will be walking us through an introduction of AHEAD's cloud delivery platform and the hybrid cloud approach. Adam Cavaliere is a Principal Sales Engineer at Tintri. Adam's focus is on infrastructure, virtualization, and solutions and enterprise architecture, and at Tintri, he works with customers to understand their environments and business requirements to best fit Tintri's technologies. During this webinar, Adam will be presenting on Tintri storage, and together, Nick and Adam will discuss how their individual topics complement one another to solve real-world use cases. Following the webinar, both Nick and Adam are available for a Q&A session. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please submit them via chat, and I'll be monitoring and submitting them to our speakers during their session at the Q&A. Let's get started. Nick, take it away.
Thanks, Chelsea. So yeah, today Adam and I have spent a lot of time building these new Tintri automation workflows that you may have heard about. And when we put the agenda together for this webinar, we wanted to focus on live demos and items that you can use in your business, right now and take away today. And so I'm going to go through a brief overview of AHEAD's cloud delivery platform. Adam's going to give an overview of the Tintri platform, and then we're going to really get into live demos. We decided, wouldn't just do one live demo, we'd do 5. So bear with us as we hope everything goes smoothly, and keep with us as we go through. So with that said, I want to talk about the AHEAD cloud delivery platform. At AHEAD, going into 2016, we really wanted to, align ourselves with our customers and the journey they're taking towards, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, just IT as a service in general. And so we've aligned around the AHEAD cloud delivery platform with 3 main goals, simplify IT, accelerate service delivery, and increase transparency. And the team I run at AHEAD is really revolved around cloud management and automation. And sometimes we refer to ourselves as kind of the glue that pieces together everything from the data center infrastructure, mobility, enterprise service management, public cloud, on-premises, ultimately to provide the business with applications and services that they can truly use today. One of the things I always like to start off with is just why are companies actually going down this cloud journey? And really it's to solve this problem, right? Somebody puts in a request for something from IT, it might be a developer putting a request to a server team for a new server application that they want to build, and then they have to pass this piece of paper around between teams to get all of the things done, getting an IP address, getting storage provision, backups, monitoring. There's many more that we're not even just showing on the slide right now. And cloud, really, the goal is to eliminate this problem. And we always like to sort of, start off again then by what do we mean by cloud itself? We know why we want it, but what actually is it? Because this term just gets thrown around all the time by vendors and just everywhere in the IT community today. We break it down into 3 main areas. We have our cloud service models where we have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, which many of you already be familiar with today. We have our cloud deployment models, private cloud, public cloud, but primarily at AHEAD today, we ultimately focus on hybrid cloud, which means, we know we're going to have on-premises workloads, we know the services we want to use in the public cloud, and if we're going to still have this on-premises component, how do we truly make that simple? And that's where a lot of what we're going to cover in this webinar today is really going to help. The last part there, really, essential cloud characteristics, that's what it's ultimately all about, the user experience, the self-service, the heavily automated environments, because we want our users to be able to go to a portal or consume the cloud via APIs, get what they need. We're a 21st century generation now, and we want things, always on when we want them, and that's what we aim to provide by cloud. So often when we work with our customers and what we call providing a meaningful cloud, we look at the characteristics of what we're trying to do, and then we worry about the deployment models and the service models to actually match. Our infrastructure as a service model It really follows this reference architecture that you're seeing here. And in today's webinar, we really wanted to focus on these three main areas around, backup disaster recovery, the physical infrastructure, particularly the storage area today. Today we're going to be using Tintri as the example. Cisco is our compute infrastructure, and ultimately that forms our cloud fabric that we're going to be covering. But more importantly, that layer in the middle there in the cloud management platform, orchestration and process automation. That's where the pain is that businesses often feel going into this. How can we make this part simpler? Because this is what truly provides the value to the business. The end result with everything we're trying to create is that somebody goes to a catalog or consumes via an API. Here we have an iPad as an example. Fill in your request on a form, and then have our orchestration tools take over and go and configure all of these external systems. This is a tool like VMware vRealize Orchestrate, and we're showing just a few of the systems we interface with here in this demo. Tintri as an example speeds up cloning, which we're going to talk more about as we go through the demos. And then the final part is once we've got our VM online on the network in our cloud model, we hand over to configuration management tools like Puppet, Chef, etc., to provide our configurations on our VMs. And that's the cloud model that we truly follow at ahead. With that said, there's other areas of automation as well. It goes beyond just provision in virtual machines and applications. We also want to cover operations and the maintenance areas. And in particular, we do a lot of work now around self-healing data center, day two operations. How do I snapshot my VM, replicate my VM? I truly want to enable DR. And so automation really covers these two. And not only that, but the change control as well, which is often a big pain for people. So with that said, let me turn it over to Adam. That's kind of just a very brief overview of the ahead hybrid cloud story. We have webinars that just cover those points in detail, but I want to make sure we get a quick overview of Tintri and then get straight into the automation work.
Thanks, Nick. So with Tintri, our philosophy really revolves around the fact that we're focused on applications, and that's where we believe IT infrastructure should really be focused on, and not at the run volume level of traditional managing of storage. And so the fact is, applications just continue to grow and continue to build out. And we need to be able to dynamically adapt to those changing workloads rather than having storage administrators and VMware administrators having to go and provision new storage, try to balance it all out, having to understand how much flash you want to add into a system, and ultimately having to balance out as those workloads change. You don't need to be forced to predict or know where you're putting VMs just because you're worried about performance issues.
Yeah, and this actually, I was going to interrupt there. This brings up a great point. Before I came to ahead, when I was automating, provisioning workloads in my previous company, there was one occasion we had 15 storage decisions, whether it was DR, whether it was high IO, low IO, dev, prod, and we built all this automation around where do I place my VM, and that's honestly what really attracted us to Tintri, and fits so well, because I want to make the cloud simpler and eliminate those complex problems of where do I provision my VM.
And this is really the key as to why Tintri is able to manage just one large pool of storage rather than having to worry about building a ton of different LUNs, trying to break up the storage into different pools, trying to make sure you have the right amount of flash. We don't take this conventional FIFO approach where you get this IO blender effect and all the VMs are contending for the same amount of performance. We take the approach to say we're going to do individual per VM isolation and give those VMs the performance they need, no matter what kind of workload is running on them. And that's why we're able to blend together application servers, database servers, even VDI on the same storage and not have to worry about that. And it gets even better once you start to go down to the vDisks, because not only are we doing this at the VM level, but we do it at the vDisk level as well. And this is a key differentiator of Tintri is the fact that Tintri, literally in the heart of the OS itself, understands individual VMs and is able to performance isolate them. And we deliver two different models, an all-flash array and a hybrid flash array. And there's a lot of vendors out there that are trying to offer flash solutions, but the problem is they're operating with blinders on. And the fact is that Tintri is able to do this performance isolation and offer up all these other features because of the intelligence we have within the file system itself. And you're able to see within the UI, as you're going through and looking at each individual VM, you can see through the whole entire stack, that's the host, the network, and the storage, individual latency and statistics for those virtual machines as they're running in real time.
Yeah, and this is key, again, when we bring this back to the cloud and the apps and the business, right? No one really is interested in LUNs and the storage and the placement. It's all about this VM level up that we really need to be focused on, and this view that Tintri gives into that, just fits again very well into the hybrid cloud methodology. So with that said, we wanted to kind of give that overview, and now we'll kind of start to jump into some of the demos, and we'll go through each one in detail here for you. First of all, what Adam and I did was, as we kind of went through and we're like, okay, well, we want to automate these things. We don't want somebody clicking in the GUI to do these tasks in Tintri all the time. How do we go about automating them? And one of the key things, we always do in the hybrid cloud world, whenever we want to onboard a new service, is whiteboard everything out, and you'll see some examples of that as we go through today, but it's absolutely key. It's not a case of just jumping into your orchestration tool and begin coding immediately. There's some planning up front. You want to automate in a systematic way, that you build these Lego bricks and building blocks that you can build upon. And the package that we just released from Tintri that we'll be demoing today, you'll see we give you all these building blocks so you can reassemble them into the use cases that you want to make sense to your business. So our very first demo is really around core capabilities, right? So Tintri cloning, very basic, something everybody does basically in VMware today. You want to clone a VM, get it to your customer quickly. And what we're going to do here is jump over to vRealize automation. So we're in our cloud environment here, which is a True Value Medical Center that we have here. And we're going to go in and request a virtual machine. So, we're going to Windows Server 2012. We're going to request this. It's already, our storage is set to Tintri on the back end here. It knows that's where we want to put it. We're going to type in our webinar test here, go to our virtual machine, and you'll see some checkboxes here that we're going to come back to later on. We're going to hit no for now on replication and sync VM, but you'll see more of those later on. But the key thing really we want to show you here is purely the speed of the cloning. So, if we go back to our vSphere web client now, so in VRA we've requested to clone, that virtual machine. Very shortly, VRA is going to send the information over to vCenter to begin the clone. And while that's happening, I'll let Adam just kind of explain, what the cloning technology in Tintri.
Thanks, Zach. And so with Tintri, we have a VAI plugin that enables the same capabilities that Tintri does natively on the back end, where we're able to actually do cloning in just insane speeds. And it actually is what we call clone dedo, where the clones happen so quickly because it's like a linked clone, but natively done on the storage. And so not only do you get the speed of it, but you also get the efficiency. Think of it as a 0-byte cost for every one of those clones that you're making, whether it's databases, application servers, or VDI desktops.
Yeah, and if you just look at the clone, it's already completed while Adam was talking there. The clone started at 12:41, 31 seconds and completed, 12:14, 31 seconds, and completed at 12:14, 33 seconds. So in 2 seconds, the clone piece is already complete. If we refresh this here, we're probably already customizing the virtual machine. This virtual machine is TT023. Already there. In a moment, vRealize will actually power that on. In fact, already happened, and the VM's already started customizing. So they're already into the Windows Server build process now, and Tintri's done its job. It's cloned. It's ready to go from a vRealize perspective. And we'll come back to these VMs later throughout the demo.
I think you need to update your slide. You say it takes 6 seconds on Tintri.
Is that right?
Yeah.
2 seconds now?
Yeah.
So 6 seconds isn't good enough for Adam, apparently. All right, so next one really is around Tintri snapshots. So cloning is great. Everybody knows how to do it. Great. We've got the time down. But what about snapshots? I think every VMware admin I know gets flooded with requests to snapshot in their VMs. They snapshot them, and then they don't want them to necessarily stick around forever. They get worried about reverting them. They use up space, and they stay around. They cause risk to the environment. So being able to snapshot at the Tintri side is really key. So I'll let Adam kind of just jump into Tintri and show you how we do that from a Tintri standpoint.
Thanks. With Tintri, we're able to do 128 snapshots per VM, and you don't have the same risks of the data having to be requiesced in or having to go through and actually worry about whether or not you're going to be running out of space. And so here, what's also nice is that you can set up schedules for snapshots where you can actually say how often you want the snapshots to occur and how long you want them to stay around. So this is an expiration setting. That means you don't have to worry about going in and managing these things. And we'll get more into replication, but it's even as simple as this, being able to set replication off of those snapshots. And what Nick's going to actually demo is the fact that we can do manual snapshots also. So if we want a manual snapshot, it can be done here. But the thing is here, we don't actually have the way to set an expiration time. And in Nick's example, he can actually set an expiration time through vRealize Automation or VRO.
Yeah, and so you can kind of see that, we could go into the Tintri GUI, we could do a snapshot of a virtual machine, but you're not going to give people that access, right? You don't want them to go into the Tintri UI to do it, and there's obviously ways to do it through the web client as well. But the first thing that we basically went out to build was a workflow for snapshot in a virtual machine. And what you can see, I'll just quickly walk you through the workflow. And again, these are all available to you. There's a bunch of building blocks. So you can see these cogs here. This is vRealize Orchestrator. These are what they call actions in VRO, for anyone that's not familiar with it. And if we go to the action section and just expand out the Tintri package here, you can see all of the building blocks that are available to you. So you can take these building blocks and assemble them now into those specific use cases that you want. So if we go back to the workflow, you can see we have snapshot virtual machine. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a session. We're going to log into the Tintri REST API. Then we're going to get our UUID from the VM. So again, VMware, we have an ID for the VM. We need to get the identification number from the Tintri storage. And then we're going to basically do our snapshot and then log out of our Tintri session. And so if I right click, and let's just run this workflow by itself, first of all, we'll pick a virtual machine. In fact, we'll pick the one that we just provisioned. That was TT, I think we're on 23 now, it looks like. We'll select our virtual machine. We'll do test webinar snapshots, number 1, and we'll hit submit. And that's going out there, and it's already completed the snapshot on the virtual machine. And now if we go back to the Tintri UI, I'll let Adam kind of pull that up for us.
So, sorry about that. I actually went to the wrong spot. Snapshots. And so here you can see that we've got that one snapshot that was just taken.
Yeah, and that was, and you can see it was immediately, no one had to go to the GUI, instantaneously, less than a second that workflow ran, and that was there. And again, that's very well, but do I really want to go into vRealize Orchestrator every time and request a snapshot? And that's really where, integrating with vRealize automation is extremely helpful. So we've taken that workflow at a head, and we've basically turned it into what we call a day 2 operation. So now we've requested our VMs. After that VM was built, I'm logged into our True Value Medical Center as myself here. I can go to my virtual machine that was just built, TT023, and I have this actions menu on the top right here. And if we click this drop down, we can see at the bottom here there's a couple of additional, Tintri actions that we've created. We'll come on to replication in a minute, but you can see here I can click Tintri Snapshot Virtual Machine. So we'll click this one. And we get the same workflow, so we'll test webinar. This is a VRA form that we put it in here. But again, I've got the name of the snapshot. So we'll call this webinar test number 2. Hit submit. Request's gone off. If we go over to vRealize Orchestrator now, in a moment, already happening, we can see the snapshot's completed. And if we go back to Tintri, let Adam jump in here again.
We'll just hit this. And one of the things I love about this is that this snapshot is now sitting out there, and by being able to set this up for end users to be able to go select the snapshots that they're looking to have done on their VMs, you can also hard code expiration times. Maybe you only want it to be out there for 7 days. Maybe a DBA or an app team is about to go and start patching their servers. The fact that they can manually go do this, you don't have to be involved in actually setting this up, and know that there's no stun to the VMs. That's another huge piece of what Tintri enables, is the fact that we do this offloaded onto the storage array. This is not done through the hypervisor. And so that means that every one of those snapshots that's taken is not only way more efficient, but it also doesn't cause any kind of performance issues on the VM itself.
So that's snapshot, and that's our first demo set there. So moving on to our second demo set is really around now Tintri replication. So, one of the things we get asked for a lot in the cloud environment is, well, how do I offer this DR option to somebody when they provision their VM? How do I enable it later on? And again, because of the VM awareness of Tintri, we're able to offer this. And again, I'll let Adam kind of explain the Tintri replication first of all, and then we'll go into the demo.
So back to that whole philosophy of focusing on applications and not really focusing on storage is the fact that every action that's done on Tintri is done at that VM/application level. And so you can set the policies up based on the needs of the applications, not require the applications to be forced to conform to the capabilities of the storage. And so each VM can have its own replication and snapshotting policy, and it can get all the way down to 1-minute snapshots. And so each one of these VMs that gets sent across, we do native change block tracking on the VMs. We take a fingerprint of that and ask the remote site whether or not it has any of those blocks on the other side. And if it does, we don't have to send those across. We only send across the unique data, and it's compressed and deduped in line as it's being sent across to the other side.
So again, when we wanted to automate this, actually, do you want to show it in the GUI first of all?
Sure.
Probably makes sense. Adam, jump in here again.
So this is going to be one of the VMs we're going to be demoing with as well. And what I want to show you is the same place that you'd set it here under protection. And what you'd be able to set is these different schedules, so hourly, daily. And then along with that, you can then choose which system you want to replicate to. And you can choose between multiple systems if you have them. You can also change the length of time that you want to keep the snapshots out at the other site.
So again, and when we wanted to go and automate that, we really broke it down into this chart that you see here. And I'll let Adam kind of run through this again as to what all the inputs, et cetera, from Tintri were, and then how we ultimately took this to vRealize Orchestrator.
So there's multiple things you have to provide to the APIs as you're going to kick off the replication. And so obviously the name, what the schedule is going to be. And so you can see we can check that off in the GUI, but if you're going to use an API, you have to actually provide those values, credentials to be able to set that, and then also the destination. So we have to understand where it's going to and what the capabilities are. Our replication lets you set all kinds of different business hour replication, different amounts of bandwidth to give, things like that. And so once we log into the VM store, we're going to get those replication details, what's set on the system itself. We're going to get the virtual machine. We're going to tie that together. We're going to set a snapshot schedule. And then after we set that snapshot schedule, we set the replication configuration. And because Nick and I worked together on whiteboarding this, it made it very easy then for us to work together on building out those workflows.
And so now if we go back over to vRealize Orchestrator, what you'll see in our configure replication workflow. So again, we've put all this together for you, so you don't have to do all these tasks, but we've created all of those Lego bricks, and we've now assembled those into that sequence that ultimately allows us to replicate a VM. And where we had those options, you saw in the Tintri GUI where you could select different replication policies, we preset those, and you could have different settings for different users because, there's different costs, et cetera, but we've wrapped all those into a workflow for now.
And Nick, I think you keyed in on something that's really important. There's a lot of different ways people try to do different levels of service, right? And so being able to set up different cost models based on how long you expect that VM to be on the other side, how many copies you expect, that gives you a very good way of setting up different levels of replication.
Yeah, and so now I can run this workflow, and again, I can pick a virtual machine. So I'll just pick the last one we built again here and grab it through the GUI here. So we'll take 23, and we want to set up replication on it. So again, I can just hit this one, click submit. And it's running there, and it's completed. So replication's now set up on TT023. And again, we'll go back over to the GUI here. I'll let Adam kind of jump into that VM and show us the replication settings.
Thanks. And actually, you can see right down here at the bottom, this TT023, we can see it catching up. That means it was just turned on. And then we'll go back to protect. And this was the setting we gave to it. So we want to snapshot twice an hour, so 10 minutes and 40 minutes past the hour. And this is the schedule we have. And this was the VM store we set for it. And
yeah. So taking that a little further then, we've built the workflow. How do we offer that as a service ultimately to our customer, right? And again, I can go into my items list, select my virtual machine. I've got my items list again here, and again, we've got an option for configure replication. So I can just select it here, and same thing. This would configure replication on the VM. So I'm not going to do that now because we already just showed you this working from the workflow. But going back to the catalog, now I can actually build a brand new virtual machine again and actually request replication on demand as well. So again, I'm going to build a new VM, Windows Server 2012. I can actually just offer this during the build of the server. So Tintri replication enabled, yes or no. Click yes in this case, and hit submit here. And what's going to happen there is, again, this server is going to build, so we're going to see TT024 coming out very shortly. But if we go back over to vRealize Orchestrator, one of the things we do to tie build profiles to VMs is something at VMware calls event subscriptions. So yeah, we have the Windows Server 2012 post-provisioning workflow. So what we're saying here is, okay, vRealize automation, when you're done provisioning that VM, you've got it online, on the network, you're going to run this workflow. And these workflows are typically very large for our clients. There's 10 or 15 tasks. I'm showing you just a few here to keep it simple. But in this case, what you see is we've added this decision here. So it's going to check in this decision whether or not Tintri replication enabled equals true. And if it is, then it will actually go ahead and configure replication on that VM. And that's going to take a little while to build, so we'll come back and show you that at the end. But that just kind of shows you, again, the power of the automation and tying it all the way through. And just to kind of add to that again, if we go back to vRealize Orchestrator and look at the action for setting replication, we'll go through some of the detail of this at the end. We've put all the properties in here already for you, the snapshot schedules, etc. But you can variabilize those too. So as Adam said, we can offer maybe 3 choices of replication, gold, silver, bronze if you want to, and just put those into those Lego bricks into the times that you want. So again, we have 10 minutes and 40 minutes past the hour. It could be, every 10 minutes, right? You could set the replication policy to be if you wanted to. So that's Tintri replication. Next thing is SyncVM, and this is one of the technologies that I was a huge fan of when as soon as Tintri announced it. This to me was the differentiator, which showed that they weren't thinking about storage, they were thinking about true application use cases. And again, I'll let Adam kind of give you a SyncVM overview before we jump into the demos.
So SyncVM offers 2 features. The one I'm going to talk about today is the ability to actually inject data from a production VM or a master VM into children VMs. And another feature that we offer is the ability to time travel with your snapshots, where you can actually move forwards and backwards within a snapshot tree without having to worry about those snapshots getting rolled up on you. And so both of these technologies are very differentiating because we focus on doing this at that VM level. But this SyncVM piece that I'm going to talk about now is really big when you think about application teams wanting the latest data in their environments and being able to get that literally within minutes rather than having to go through massive processes around scripting and trying to get data actually moved around. And so I think seeing it really is worth its weight in gold. So
yeah, and just that, again, that DevOps use case, the amount of times we've heard people say, I want to clone this entire production environment to 15 developers or QA teams, we get it all the time. And so this was a great way to solve that use case. And again, I'll let Adam explain it from the GUI perspective first.
So in the GUI, I'm going to go back to one of those dev VMs and show you what it would look like if you wanted to manually do this. And so we have this synchronize right here, and we're going to choose refresh virtual disks. And when I choose refresh virtual disks, it comes up and asks me, what VM do I want to take the data from? And so I'm going to say, I want to take it from production. And then I want to choose what snapshot to refresh from. And so here we have a choice of a lot of different snapshots. I'm going to choose a loaded data one because that would be the one that has all the data in it. And I don't want to replace the 00 because that's where all my guest customization has been done, operating system, applications installed. But I do want to take my database. I want to take the temp DB. And I want to take the log files. Those are 3 different disks that I want to inject into the dev VM, and I'd hit refresh. At this point, it would power off the VM, inject the data, and power back up. But I think it's more powerful if you guys actually see what this application looks like. And so what I'm going to do here is go back, show you what the environment looks like as if it were fresh. And so
should probably tell people what Sugar CRM is quickly.
Exactly. So Sugar CRM is an open source CRM tool, and the reason why I chose to use it is it was very easy for me to get it built out and inject dummy data into it so I could use it for a demo. And because it's a full database, you can actually see what's happening as we add in new records. You know, it's one thing to take data from a backup and get it into another environment, but what about taking live data and actually getting it in real time over into that environment? And so I'm going to put in Nick's information into here.
It's just me, not Chelsea.
We can add in Chelsea next.
All right.
And so here, what I've done is I've put in his information, clicking save here. We've got a brand new record going into this database. And you'll be able to see here on the front page that we've got Nick's information and the timestamp we have it at. And on the dev VM, we have no data. This is truly a fresh environment, ready to have new data put into it.
Yeah, so you saw Adam kind of show how we would do sync VM from the GUI. So we're going to use these two virtual machines that you've seen here and actually illustrate this in vRealize Orchestrator. And so back over to vRealize Orchestrator, you can see again, we've created the sync VM workflow for you. So we're using, again, a lot of those same building blocks that we've used for some of the other workflows. We're creating a session, we're getting our UUID from our VM. We're actually going to snapshot the master VM immediately because we want that fresh set of data that we're going to get from, and then we're going to get the UUID of that snapshot. Then we're going to get our UUID of our target VM. So again, this first section in blue is all the master VM. The second section is the target VM. We're going to shut down the guest gracefully. We're going to sync the data and then power on the machine again, and then log out of our Tintri REST session. And so what that looks like if we run this workflow, choose which one we want to sync it from.
Yep.
And we'll sync it to dev1.
And so now, while this is kicking off, it's really following that same process I showed before that you would have had to do manually. Is there anything you want to add into that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just snapshot in the VM now. If we go back to the vSphere web client, in a moment, we should see, it's already started, shutting down the guest of dev1. We'll refresh again here. It syncs so quickly, so we've probably seen, it's already synced the data, so we should see the VM starting up again.
And so literally what's happening, you had to wait for that OS to power off, you had to inject the data and power back up. And so this happened in seconds, and it doesn't matter if it's gigabytes or terabytes, we're going to be able to operate at that same exact speed.
Yeah, so we'll just wait for this VM to power back on.
We can actually, it's powered on, we should be able to go, yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
So because Sugar CRM does some caching with the browser, I always log out, so we can just log back in and you can actually see a good example of how it looks. And so you can see Nick's information is here, along with all the other records. And so it literally took seconds to inject all that data into a development VM by using VRO.
Yeah, and so let's take that a little further now. That's just sync VM by itself. And as we thought about, we'll show this in BRA in a moment, but before we do that, we wanted to really think about, what was the way to extend this? What's the real world use case? We know in most environments, nobody's going to allow their developers just to pick and choose where do I sync data from and grab data all day long. And so we did a focus around extensibility, which is one of the things we do. We do a lot of ahead with our workflows. And really, when we sort of looked at it, there were a number of additional things we wanted to do. One was creating a change record. How do we tie this into ServiceNow so we can actually, create a change to say that, okay, this happened, we synced the data, we want some audit and login, for all the regulatory requirements that we have out there. In addition, Adam came up with a great point. Well, what about the PII data? How do we sanitize that in the environment? Because we don't necessarily want all those telephone numbers being populated into those development environments as well.
And so, yeah, we don't want the developers being able to call our customers. So we want to clean that out. But, you know, really, we didn't have an example to show credit card or social security numbers, but the thought process is the same, is that we're able to utilize a process to clean up the data. And whether or not you'd want to use this versus another one, you know, typically you work with your DBAs to build out stored procedures, et cetera, that would be able to do this. And the fact that you can use VRO to actually kick off those different flows really becomes a very powerful way to accomplish you know, multiple things at once.
So back over to vRealize Orchestrator for the moment. You know, first of all, what Adam worked on here is we took the sync VM and cleanse data piece here, and it's a new workflow, but it's a copy of the sync VM workflow, but it adds the section in here for cleansing data, where it actually runs a program in the guest. It's actually a SQL, actually uses a SQL query to wipe out the table, basically, and wipe out those records. That was one piece of it. And then we thought, well, how do we actually take this and make it accessible to the DevOps? You know, DevOps Team X, how do we make a workflow specific to them and specific to writing their change order? And so what we did was we created another workflow that wraps just the single workflow, again, the one with the cleansed data. So we don't have to go in and put all those building blocks in again now. You know, we've created one clear example. We want to clean the data every time. We put that in, and we want to write the change control ticket as well. And so we could run this by itself, but we thought it'd be good to kind of go back over to vRealize automation.
Let's add another record.
Add a record?
Yeah.
Yep, go for it. We'll add a record in first.
Just let you type. You know, and one of the things I want to point out is that this is really innovative, that HEAD is taking an approach to say, let's not just automate doing the actual work, but let's automate the thing that is the bane of every IT admin's existence, and that's actually doing change control. How much time do you spend actually doing change control versus doing the actual work? I mean, it's usually the inverse is true. It's a way more work to do the changes than to actually do the work.
So in this next example, what I'm going to actually do is request a brand new Sugar CRM dev machine as well. We'll do a couple of things here. So first I'm going to request a new machine. I'm going to select my machine here. I'm going to choose replication enabled and Sugar CRM sync yes. So what I'm saying is I want to sync the latest data and I want to replicate this VM. So I'm given the choice there. And I'm going to submit that, and that's going to start off a new build momentarily. But in addition to that, you know, we want to sync data on demand. So I can go back to my, you know, one of my machines here. I'll take this dev one here, dev 7, and I've got actions here where I can scroll down. If I go down a little further, we've created that VRA DevOps Team X sync data action. And so if I run this one now, I can actually say, okay, testing webinar again. And I'm going to submit this, and it's actually going to fire off that sync VM workflow now as well, directly from the items list there. So we'll scroll back over there, and we see that running right now. It's doing sync VM. So it's still getting a snapshot. And it's already shutting down the guest. So if we go back to vCenter, sorry about all the window flicking here.
I'll tell you the IP to type in.
So again, dev 7 here. So we've got dev 8, that's the new one we're building, and dev 7 is the one we just kicked off the sync VM on. So we'll just wait for it to come up.
All right, you want to type in an IP address?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so we're logging in now, and you can see that not only do we get Nick's data, which was updated, but we also grabbed Chelsea's record as well, and we cleared out phone numbers there, and then the phone numbers over here. So in two different tables, we'd actually cleared that out.
Yeah, and if we also go over to ServiceNow, which we're logged into here, and we just pull up our change list, you know, not only that, but we can go into this latest change that was just created, and we can see here, Tintri Sync VM automated data sync executed by vRealize automation build. And we put a description here in to actually say where did it get the data from, and it was sync data from the Sugar CRM sync prod, and it was a build by vRealize. And you can expand on this. We can set urgencies, impact, etc. Whatever we want to do, we can populate all those ServiceNow fields as well. And we have another workflow as well that'll actually go in and close this change record out. If you wanted to close immediately after. And again, I think this just shows the full extensibility of the product when combined with Tintri's APIs. If we go back as well and look further on here, we're probably still in build process here, but we can, I think, take about 5 or 6 minutes to build these. But we have a sync Sugar CRM VRA Dev 8. That's the one we just requested to build. If we go back over to vRealize Orchestrator, again, what you'll see down at the bottom here is we've created another event subscription, which will basically run. So it hasn't run yet. So once VMware's finished building that machine, we will actually see another workflow kick off here, where it's actually going to go in and kick off that Sugar CRM sync, and it's going to kick off the replication as well, because we selected yes to replication and we selected yes to sync in the data as well.
One of the things I'd like to point out while we're working on that to build is, when you look at the Tintri UI, look at these two VMs. So the fact that we took production data, 119 gigabytes of it, and injected it into this Dev1 VM, yet we didn't take up any additional space. This is the same technology we're using when we clone VMs. The only reason why we see this 10 gigabytes here is because that's what the C drive is taking up, the operating system and all those pieces. Everything else is coming from this VM itself. And so if you think about how many copies of that data you're able to make at a 0-byte cost, it's really a game changer when you talk about being able to implement tons of environments without adding on additional cost when it comes to storage.
Yeah, well, let's just see if that's finished first, actually. If not, what we'll do is we'll jump into, so actually doing the sync VM right now. You can see this new machine we built. It's currently in its guest OS shutdown. So if we go back over to our workflow, we can see it's running. The post-provisioning task is running. And if we go back to the overarching one, we can see it's in this phase. Oh, jumping around pretty quick here, so I can't slow vRealize Orchestrator down. But basically, it's in there right now, syncing the data. Once that machine starts up, because we selected replication as well, it's going to go on and configure the replication as well. So that should be up in a moment.
And I think what's really amazing to think about here is you're building out a brand new VM that's being joined to the domain. It's getting fully customized. So this VM is going to be 100% ready with brand new data in it for a developer to start using. And think about being able to fail forward. Maybe they want to be testing brand new VMs all the time. They can use this to build it out, test it, and destroy it very quickly. I think you've mentioned that to me in the past too, where you've been, you love how fast you can build demo environments because of how fast you can clone.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone in the head lab, where people just use Tintri because they want it up quick. And none of us have any patience, 21st century generation and everything. So, do you want to log in here again? Sure. So this is our brand new VM that we've built. And again, we can see, we didn't add any new records, but we can see that, Chelsea and myself are in there. And again, we chose to do that data sanitization. And so that's taken place as well.
You set up, along with that, you want to type in like the beginning of the name of that?
Yeah, it's this one.
Oh, it's that one right there? Oh, thanks. And so, you've not only done that, but you also set up the replication. We can see it's scheduled over here. So you took the data, you set up replication, and we can see that it's got this schedule set on it. Actually, that was a one, yeah.
There's some weird bug in Chrome as of the last update that you've seen there. That's why there we go.
And so you can see it's the same schedule that Nick had used for the last VM, and you're able to see that here as well.
Okay, so last thing we wanted to do very quickly, because I know we're pushing on time here, is actually just show you how you would go about building one of these workflows out. So I'll just do a very, very basic one here in vRealize Orchestrator. If you create a brand new workflow, from VRO, look at this webinar workflow here. What you've got, again, you can go in here Let's drag this out, and we've got our all action section on the bottom here. And if we expand this out, we've got our Tintri actions here, and we can start off with very simple things like creating our REST session. And let's put that in. We click setup on the top right. It's going to say, okay, I need a username or password on my REST host. We can put all those as inputs if we want to. The result of that is what we call our Tintri JSession ID. And so we would want to keep that so we can pass that into subsequent workflows. In this occasion, I'm just going to add a logout as well. So we're going to add a logout session there, and I'm going to save that action result that I had before. I'm going to pass in there, and I'm going to pass in the same REST host. And so all this workflow is doing now is logging into Tintri and logging out. And so if I run this by itself, I have to put in my Tintri login, a password there. I'm going to select my REST host object. So again, I'm going to select the T880, select that, click submit, and hopefully this will work. There we go. And we can see, so move this to the right, we logged in, we logged out of a session there immediately. Now I can just keep expanding on it, right? I can go back to my workflow. I can add in other things that I want, like, if I wanted to do the snapshot, so I've got create snap somewhere here. So we got create snapshot. I drop that in the middle, and I'd configure those parameters. In this case, I'm going to need a virtual machine and other things as well. So there's a lot you can do just with VRO and just these building blocks there. There's a ton of examples again here that you can take from. All the code is there. Everything's freely available. Adam and I are both on Twitter. Hit us up with questions and everything as well. But hopefully, this really shows everybody that just the pure power of combining, vRealize automation, vRealize orchestrator, and Tintri's APIs.
And so, the last thing to touch on, it's definitely about Tintri here, but I think it also speaks to the power of a head. Is that, we support multiple workloads and multiple hypervisors. And so the capabilities we've shown have been all revolving around VMware, but we support these other hypervisors, Hyper-V, Zen Server, Red Hat, and even OpenStack. And being able to do these per VM capabilities across those on the same pool of storage means that you can really start to try out and expand your environment with different hypervisors, and along with that, run multiple workloads on our system. And so you've seen this with VMware, but Nick and I have talked about the fact that this can be done in a multitude of other automation engines.
Exactly. We at AHEAD, we work with, the Cisco Enterprise Cloud Suites, the Cisco UCS Director, Clicker, Azure Stack, ServiceNow, etc. So this is absolutely not limited to VMware in any way, and all those API calls can just be used with any of those automation products, and hopefully we'll be able to release those in the not too distant future for you as well.
First, I'd like to say thank you guys so much for that awesome presentation, and thanks to everyone who joined us. We've got a few minutes left for a Q&A session, and we've actually got a few questions submitted already. And if you didn't get a chance to submit one, feel free to do so now using your WebEx dashboard. But to start, the first question we got is, where can I get these workflows, and where can I get more information on how to use them? Yeah,
so I'm personally blogging these myself, and there's a link on the AHEAD blog that links to my blog, the workflows. There'll be a lot of how-to guides coming out over the next weeks. Adam and I are kind of working on. This will obviously be recorded as well, as Chelsea mentioned. But check out our blogs, check out the links. We'll post those and send those out to everyone following the webinar. But I think that's a great way to get information.
Okay. Next question: what if you have multiple VM stores? How do you manage them?
So So we actually have Tintri Global Center, which combines all of them together and becomes a central management point for not only setting policies, but also being able to see things in the future like auto load balancing of virtual machines. And so the other key piece with that is that you then code against Tintri Global Center. You don't have to target an individual VM store. You can actually utilize all the APIs in Tintri Global Center to do the same stuff.
Okay, Tintri is a multi-tenancy environment. I want to know if the system has a fallback mechanism that will enable a different virtual machine connection to be established if the one instance should fail.
has a different, can you repeat that?
Tintri is a multi-tenancy
Oh, I
environment.
can actually see it here.
Okay.
Multi-system fallback mechanism, that one as well. Different virtual machine connection. So, yeah, so we're highly redundant, which means that not only are both controllers redundant, but also the network connectivity pieces are redundant too. So there's, you know, our systems ship with 5 nines of availability from an architecture perspective, and we're seeing actually higher than that. So.
Okay. People like to compare VSAN to Tintri as far as automating replication. What is the big differentiator between the two?
Well, Adam, take this again.
So Tintri is really, you know, I'd say vSAN and Tintri are focused at the application level. Because Tintri does the actual per VM settings and actually is able to do that from the storage itself, there's great efficiencies in the way that we're able to send those VMs across to the other side.
Yeah, I guess I'll just add, you know, at ahead, you know, we play with vSAN quite a lot as well, and we just haven't seen the same performance, the same speed, the same results out of vSAN compared to Tintri. I mean, things like Sync VM don't exist, you know, but vSAN definitely has its use cases. You know, we see it in small environments, remote offices, you know, there's definitely great use cases there, and obviously their latest version, there's a lot of promise for it to work in the data center. But as of today, you know, we definitely lean more towards the Tintri side on that.
Okay, I typically separate my production VMs from dev VMs on my data storage. How would it work in this scenario with Sync VM?
Sure. I think that touches upon what Tintri, you know, the heart of Tintri being able to do QoS. One of the first things that I didn't mention because it wasn't part of our demo, but Tintri also has the capability to set QoS manually on virtual machines. So whether or not you're concerned about VMs all living on the same storage, it's the fact that we performance isolate those VMs automatically. And if you wanted to then also go further to actually set this up manually, you can. And I've talked to customers about the fact that they can set their production VM to be, get a minimum guarantee of IOPS, and then set a throttling on the dev VMs. And that way, there's definitely a good balance there. I'm very adamant that our QoS is second to none when it comes to VMs, and so people should feel very confident in running different levels of workloads on them.
Okay, great. I think that's all the questions we have for today. And if you guys think of any additional questions, feel free to tweet or email Adam or Nick.
Yeah, just on that point, please reach out to us. You know, we want to keep expanding these use cases, and you know, we built what we call those Lego bricks, those actions based around, you know, what we thought were the real world use cases, and that's what we like to do. You know, we didn't want to just surround everyone with PowerPoint. You know, we want to try to make this real for people. So tell us what you need these workflows to do, because we definitely like to continue customizing them and adding more features that you need.
So thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Today,
thanks everybody.
Have a great day.